Hello and welcome back to the Wyoming Watch, the Wyoming Tribune Eagle's weekly podcast. I'm IPC Crest, your crime and public safety reporter. The Cowboy State is bolstering its rodeo reputation with the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association's recent development deal to relocate its national headquarters, the ProRodeo Hall of Fame, and the Museum of the American Cowboy from Colorado Springs to Cheyenne. Estimates indicate the transition will bring about $256.2 million to Laramie County, with a $15 million commitment from the state to support the move. This week on Wyoming Watch, the Wyoming Tribune Eagle's state government reporter Noah Zahn spoke with Cheyenne Lead's president and CEO Betsey Hale and Greater Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce president and CEO Dale Steenbergen about the impact of the move.
Yeah, well, I guess generally, can you tell me just overall what this means for Cheyenne and this move and what you're most excited about?
We're the Cowboy State, right? So when we look at especially our tourism inventory, if we can move something like this to the state, it just adds to that aura and possibilities for us, right? I think it's a good fit for us, makes sense for our community, and certainly there will be some, direct, tangible benefits from folks that move here and jobs and all that kind of thing. But I think really the benefit comes from, adding to this tourism inventory that people want to come here to relive the West or the cowboy way of life.
So I guess just from the perspective of the chamber, do you have any role in this going forward, or is it mainly just going to be, supporting it and welcoming new businesses that come along with it?
We probably will not have any direct interaction any more than we would with other businesses, but I think that we're going to help them be successful here as much as we can, right? And they're a good addition to the community. Cheyenne's a hopping spot right now. We got all kinds of businesses located here and all kinds of projects, from Sentinel missile system to data centers to a lot of other things. So in the middle of all that melee, if you can do some things that help keep you grounded and tied to your identity, I think that's all good. And that is what we are able to do through the PRCA moving here.
Mm-hmm. And, just in general, what does it mean to have, this kind of movement and such a big move in this hitching post area and, plans for the future with hotels or restaurants or conference centers there? What is that going to look like for the business community in Cheyenne over the next decade or so?
I think it's very important to know that if you can get, if you study economics of communities, right, getting anchors is extremely important. So kind of the west side of Cheyenne has kind of missed those big anchor tenants that would draw around them. And this is one of those things where, it's a natural draw. People will come here. So there will be a lot of ancillary businesses that will look at locating close to them because of the traffic. So I think it's a very good step to the future for us because it gives us some westward reach, which we have struggled with kind of gaining a foothold out there for a while.
Mm-hmm. And can you also tell me a bit about, the funds from the state that are going to support this, and also the potential for, it being on the sixpenny ballot, just having that public investment in these kind of private businesses? How does that, if somebody might have concerns about taxpayer funds being used to support those kinds of things, have you seen that usually pay off in this way?
Well, I think first we all ought to be skeptical about how we spend public funds, right? That's important that we make sure that they are spent in a direction that we want. I would say that working through the legislature, there is support from all over Wyoming for the location of PRCA. This money, it's not going to be like an added tax. This was money that was already allocated for a tourism project. So the state monies are a natural fit for this, something good for Cheyenne, but for the whole state of Wyoming, that the legislature could budget, but they didn't have to go out and seek that money anywhere. The 6-penny tax, Cheyenne has always been good about supporting the 6-penny tax, and so it will be important to make a case to the people, but from what I've done a little polling on the 6-penny recently, I think there'll be good support for it. And generally, investments made in these kinds of projects across the country have proven to make money over time. So I think we're headed down a good direction with these guys.
Mm-hmm. And, just the ripple effects of bringing in more tourism, where is that going to be most felt in supporting some of the existing businesses here maybe?
So the cool thing about, anytime we can grow tourism, we don't have to flush their toilets or educate their kids or all the things that get to be really expensive for us, right? Mm-hmm. So, and typically, too, tourism dollars roll in the community 3 to 4 times. So every dollar we can bring in, we just get a multiple of 4 for impact on the community. So I don't know exactly what they're bringing. It'd be hard to tell that before they get here. But I think it's clear that enough people are interested in the cowboy aura that adding something to this feeling is going to be really, really good for us. All we got to do is get them to stop as they're driving up I-25 and spend a few bucks, and it's going to pay for itself very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, I think that's about all I had. I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add, or
I think the only thing I'd add, certainly we welcome this new business that realizes the potential of Cheyenne and Wyoming, but we welcome all new businesses, right? And we want them to understand that Wyoming is a great place to live, work, and do business, and with the PRCA we're helping build that reputation.
Great. Well, like I said, that's all I had, so I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with me about that.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, Dale. Bye. Yeah, that's all right. I'm just calling about the PRCA headquarters moving to Cheyenne and just Lead's role in that, and just wanted to learn more about that, really.
Yeah, no problem. We started about 1.5 years ago putting together a proposal to present to the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association board and the board of the Hall of Fame and Museum to see if they consider relocating from Colorado Springs, Colorado to Cheyenne, Wyoming. And when I say we, it was really just a group of community leaders and my board members. And we called it Project Blue Moon because once in a blue moon, you come across a project that really ought to come to your community. And of course, we're the Cowboy State. And so inviting the PRCA to move to Wyoming made a lot of sense to us. And so Tom Glaus is the CEO of PRCA, and he has Wyoming roots. He went to UW. He rodeoed for UW. His son is now the UW rodeo coach. And so lots of ties here, and his son, Seth, I believe is his name, he had been the LCCC rodeo coach before he went over to UW. And so lots of ties here. He actually rodeoed with Tom Hersig, who, of course, was Cheyenne Frontier Days. And so just a lot of these things. And then under the Meade administration, under Governor Meade, Tom Glaus was the head of the Department of Insurance. And so all these kind of interesting ties to Wyoming, and a lot of my board and community leaders are friends with Tom. And so we reached out, and his board said yes, they would consider a proposal. And so we started that, like I said, 1.5 years ago. And then last August, Governor Meade went with us down to Colorado Springs, and Ryan Lance, who's one of my board members, and we made a presentation to the PRCA board about moving to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and it really worked out great. They said yes, they'd be interested and wanted to know more. And so Leeds hired some local consultants, engineering firms, and folks like that. And we evaluated 21 locations throughout the city and in the county and even out at the Archer.
Yeah.
And we got down to a final 4, and last October the board came up and they selected the current site, which we're calling the Hitching Post District. And so that's about 415 acres out here to the west of town. It's right at the southwest corner of the intersection of I-25 and I-80. So if you know where you go to get your driver's license, and there's a McDonald's there, so College, it's that real estate you can see all to the west, south of I-80. And so it's very exciting. They'll have 35 acres there, and they'll build their new headquarters and their Hall of Fame and Museum of the American Cowboy. So it's really an opportunity for us to celebrate our Western heritage, but it's also a chance for us to bring some amenities to Cheyenne that are more destination and tourism related. And I think that's what's really driving this, is when you think about Wyoming and you think about coming to Wyoming, we need a place where people can see rodeo year round. And so we're excited that we can make that happen. We really need Cheyenne, if we're going to live the legend and protect the legend and all of that. We need to have an experience, a site where we really live the West, and we celebrate that. And so the Hitching Post District, in addition to the Hall of Fame and Museum and the headquarters, will be working to bring a hotel convention center, an indoor arena, equestrian center. We'll look at other amenities, certainly restaurants, retail, different types of entertainment venues. We'll look at what are the things that these athletes, the men and women of rodeo, what are the things that they need? So it's really pretty exciting. We hope that there'll also be a sculpture garden and a sculpture trail and a possible foundry. So lots going on. We're just now starting to work with the PRCA to design their campus and their buildings. And we're also going to start to begin to master plan the entire Hitching Post District. And so that hopefully we can, once we get a team together, we can start to have some community engagement meetings to talk about what are the things that people like yourself would like to see out there that we don't have available currently in Cheyenne.
Yeah, and I want to ask more about the Hitching Post Business District, but first, can you tell me, you said that Leeds approached PRCA. Did they put out, a request for wanting to move somewhere? They had been in their current location for decades, or did you just reach out?
They've been in their current location for decades. They did not put out a request for proposals. What they did do is once we talked to them, they had other communities such as Fort Worth and Colorado Springs, of course, put together proposals to keep them there or to move them down to the Fort Worth stockyards. But the PRCA board really understood that they only wanted to move once. And one of the challenges they had down in Colorado Springs is they were really on a postage stamp of a property, and all around them it's developed into other uses that aren't compatible. And so this opportunity will allow them to work with us to put in covenants and restrictions on development. So, for example, there won't be casinos out here in this district. Fireworks stands won't be out there. Data centers, wind and solar won't be built out there. And it's really so we can have those wonderful vistas that property currently has, the wide open spaces, the celebration of the plains. So yeah, there were a couple proposals that they looked at, but they felt like this was an opportunity for long-term growth. And their goal is really, truly to make this their forever home.
And, there were $15 million coming from the state and from Leeds to support this. Can you tell me, what that money's going towards and, just the risk?
So the $15 million from the state, that is tourism capital projects money. So that's lodging tax dollars, and it has to be used for the museum and Hall of Fame. So it has to have an educational purpose So that money will be used strictly for that. Cheyenne leads matching dollars. We do not have those restrictions, so we'll be able to utilize our resources on some infrastructure in the headquarters. And then we have a 6-penny ballot question that has to be used for the road. So for the large loop road through the entire property. And then the city provided us a $1 million contribution that will be used for sewer and water. And that's a lot. Sewer and water is not cheap, and got a lot of dirt to move out there. In addition to that, there's private fundraising that's being used for the museum, and also a Progress and Prosperity campaign that will be used for infrastructure. So, it's so interesting. People, detention ponds, all that stuff, we oftentimes forget. Buildings are great, but they all need toilets, right? They all need running water.
Sure.
So we got a lot of other expenses for that, but that's kind of the use of the money.
Leeds put out these estimations of how much money it'll generate in economic benefit, and that 252.6 million, that's a pretty big return based off of the investment it's getting. So can you tell me how you calculated that and how confident you are that it'll be able to have that much of a return?
So interestingly enough, that's a very conservative number. So I'm not a real big fan of overinflating numbers. So we made an assumption that only 100,000 people a year would go to the museum. And we have over 200,000 people that come to Frontier Days.
Yeah.
So, but I don't like to pump things up, right? So I always want to be very thoughtful and make sure that we have true dollars that are real. And so we hired University of Wyoming Center for Business and Economic Analysis to run an economic impact model for us. And then we also hired a private company called Economic Planning Solutions. And the reason I did that is I wanted to be sure that two respected entities came back with the same, benefits. So they came, it was relatively very close, not exactly the same numbers. So, I think it's always better to, get a public entity opinion and then a private entity opinion. So that's what we did.
And on this Hitching Post Business District, you told me a bit about your vision for it. What's the anticipated timeline there, or is it just seeing as things come in?
We're just now in the design phases for the PRCA campus. We've started some of the design work and layout of the actual business district itself. Of course, that's all, to be determined depending on projects. But we do already have interest from a hotel convention center operator and from an entertainment venue operator. And so we're excited about that. But our first goal is to get the PRCA campus developed, get those buildings coming out of the ground. We'll probably break ground on some of the infrastructure late this fall, but no later than spring of next year. Those buildings for PRCA have to be ready to go third quarter of 2028. So they'll be moving in first quarter of 2029.
Sure.
Which is not that far away when you consider it's May of 2026.
I guess so. Yeah, that date feels like it's a lot farther away than it actually is now. Yeah. Well, I think that's about all I had. Is there anything else that you want to add for just learning more about this?
We're really excited, and I'm so grateful for the community for their support, for the city, for the county, for their support, and for the state legislature. It's exciting that we've come together in our Wyoming way to get this done.
In the headlines this week, Thursday, the Wyoming Supreme Court cleared the way for the state to begin distributing money for its expansive and controversial Universal School Voucher program. In a unanimous ruling, the court concluded that Laramie County District Judge Peter Froelicher erred when he blocked the release of public funds nearly a year ago. And Cheyenne Recreation and Events Director Jason Sanchez presented the department's proposed budget for fiscal year 2027 to members of the Cheyenne City Council during a work session on Wednesday. The $11.36 million budget request focuses on sustainability, organizational effectiveness, and ensuring the department is positioned to continue serving residents at a high level long into the future, with various requests for new staff positions to accommodate the city's growing operational demands. And Carrie Nix, the pulmonary cardiac rehab manager at Cheyenne Regional Medical Center, was honored Thursday as the American Heart Association's 2026 Wyoming Woman of Impact winner. Nix was one of 3 women nominated for the Go Red for Women Women's Impact campaign in Wyoming, which is in partnership with the American Heart Association. The other nominees were Diane True, the regional coordinator at the Wyoming Center on Aging in Cody, and Dr. Amanda DiDiego, the associate professor in counseling and interim dean at the University of Wyoming at Casper. Thank you again for tuning into Wyoming Watch. Tune in next week for more local news.